All right, we've got The Healing Power of Stories by Daniel Taylor, Ph.D. This is a book that I'm not even sure is entirely positive that it's still in print. And there's some repetition in it. It's got some, it's got a lot of good stuff. Taylor is a good, solid Christian. And he is definitely, he's definitely got an incredible education. He will give you lots of references to worldviews and world religions and things like that. He understands that information very thoroughly. But the reason that I love this book, I was kind of tipped off to it by some other writings, and there was this idea that I have an article where I wrote about whole healing, bent and broken. And I got that information from Oliver DeMille, who referred me to this book for that information, and I've gone through it and I can't find where Taylor actually defines those same concepts in the way that DeMille did and is using that information in the same way. So that's actually probably just those concepts were kind of turned and changed a little bit by DeMille, and then I wrote an article on that kind of thing in the Classics article. But what I do love about this book is the idea that stories make us who we are. That our lives only make sense to us as we make a story of them. And when we tell people about ourselves and about our lives, we don't just state facts, we tell a story. I mean, really think about that. If you sit down with someone and say, tell me how you met, or tell me who you are, they'll tell you stories. And the stories of the people around us are always influencing and impacting us, our parents, our siblings, our spouse, our working relationships, all are interactions of stories with other human beings. And so one of the things that's fantastic about education, and Taylor really points this out and does a fantastic job of explaining, and he doesn't go into as much detail anyway. I would say it a little bit differently than him, but ultimately we're making the same point, and that is that, especially in literature, but in much of the education that you pursue, your self-education, so much of it is stories. Play is stories, poetry is a form of story, fairy tales, fables, much of what we read, even if we don't call it literature or novels, is actually story. And even when we're writing essays or we're reading nonfiction, often stories are the best examples of in the book of what's being trying to be told, and the information is told as a story. So stories are very, very critical, and he's talking about the healing power of stories and how we can use stories to heal ourselves, and we can repair our own stories in certain legitimate ways. We can tell ourselves the right stories. So it's hard to kind of give you an idea of everything that's in here. I've been through it, bounced around in it is basically how I've read it. But I was captured right in the preface. Here's some of the contents: the sound of story, what do you know, when you know a story, characters shaping character beyond personality, and I loved that too, that characters shape character, and he tells some stories. Healing broken stories, finding a plot in our lives, and that can be applied to stories that we tell through books as well. He says, one does not have to be an end-of-the-world doomsayer to feel the confusion in the air. We are not quite sure who we are or why we are here or what we are to do. These questions have traditionally been answered best by stories, and I believe they still are. I don't like self-help books, but I may have written one. We are altogether too preoccupied with our fleeting mental states. The more we are determined directly to make ourselves happy, esteemed, fulfilled, actualized, and the like, the less likely we are to be so. Act the way you should, and those things will take care of themselves. Sounds suspiciously like what our mothers told us, but it's true. That's right there in the preface, and he just, in the first couple paragraphs, just lays out really what he's about. He's about being good people and being people of character, and he defines character, and he defines how character is built, and he talks about how other people's and character and story, and what does it mean to be a character in a story. There's just a lot of really good stuff in here, especially if you care about education the way I do. And then one of my favorite parts is going to be, if you grab this book, Character Shaping Character is probably my very favorite chapter. I've read it a few times. I've got some favorite quotes. And here on page 48, he tells his story of reading Lord of the Rings and how it was the first insight into his understanding of the fact that stories could really change you and build your character. And I absolutely believe that 100,000%, that whatever we're reading and whatever we're watching and whatever we're listening to are shaping us, whether we want to admit that or not. We pretend like there's a total disconnect between who we are and the stories we spend time with. You know, that's why there's a famous saying, the people you spend time with in the books that you read determine who you will be in 5 years. And that's taken on a whole new meaning for me, a much deeper, richer meaning after reading this book, because the people we spend time with are also part of our story. They're the story that's shaping us. And then what we read is shaping us. And of course, in our culture, what we watch and listen to is also shaping us. So there are some fantastic things in here to read and understand about. When he spends a lot of time in just our personal story, that wasn't some of my favorite stuff just because I'm all about education, but you might really enjoy it yourself. You might really appreciate what he's saying about your own plot and your own character and how to build that in good, constructive ways. So, The Healing Power of Stories by Daniel Taylor, Ph.D. Highly recommend it. See you next time.